24 Crawford Road by Ian Farrington. An adventure of the 7th Doctor with Melanie Bush. "Another few minutes, Sarah, and then that's it," said Mother. "You can take your brother to bed first, then go yourself." I knew I would be pushing my luck to try to stay awake any longer, even on Christmas Eve. My parents were being good enough as it was, allowing Michael and me to enjoy a little more of the day. As Father had said over lunch, the anticipation of something was always better than the thing itself. But tomorrow was Christmas Day. Surely that didn't apply. Father was reading in his usual chair. I could tell that he would have preferred it if Mother had not had the wireless on, but she was sitting next to it, leaning in and smiling as she listened to her program. My brother was playing at her feet. He had little wooden soldiers lined up in front of him, and he was pretending that they were about to make an attack across the hearth. Of all the Christmas Eves I could remember, this was the best so far. Father had had a promotion at the bank a few weeks earlier. He enjoyed telling anyone who'd listened that no one from Croydon had ever risen so highly in the company. This had meant we were better off, he told Mother, and we seemed to have more food in the house than ever before. I looked across at Michael. He knew to keep his voice down, that Father would have sent him straight to bed if he disturbed his reading, but he was mumbling under his breath. I could just make him out giving his soldiers their orders. "Charge for the enemy, my lad! Take no prisoners!" His eyes were wide. I could tell there was little chance I'd be able to get him to go to bed in the next few minutes. Knock, knock, knock. Father dropped his book and looked across at Mother. "Whoever could that be at this time? Don't they know it's Christmas Eve?" He didn't like unannounced visitors at the best of times. "I don't know, dear," said Mother as she clicked the wireless off. "I'd better go and see." The three of us listened as she went into the hallway and opened the door. "Oh, Doctor, at last," said a woman. "Oh, sorry. I was looking for a friend of mine. Is he here?" Her voice made her sound young, though probably older than me, and friendly. "Come in for a moment, my dear. It's terribly cold out there for what you're wearing." The door clicked shut. "I'm afraid your friend isn't here, but come in and get warm." Father sighed very loudly and slammed his book down on the arm of his chair. He stood up and straightened his jacket before Mother returned with our guest. "Take a seat by the fire," Mother was telling her. "The one next to the wireless. I'll get you a warm drink." She then went through to the kitchen. "Thank you," said the woman, smiling apologetically around. She had long, beautiful red hair in big curls and was wearing the oddest clothes. She had a blue top and white trousers, both with spots. It was like what you'd wear at the beach. Without even looking round, I could just tell my father was disapproving of her. "What's your name?" Trust Michael to get straight to the point. One of the advantages of being 5 years old, I suppose. "My name's Mel," she said. "What's yours?" My brother suddenly got very nervous at such direct communication from an adult and went back to his soldiers. "Please excuse him, miss," I said. "He's called Michael, and I'm Sarah." "Very pleased to meet both of you," she said, shaking my hand. My father coughed loudly, interrupting. How can we help you, young lady?" "Yes, sorry," she said. "As I say, I was looking for my friend. I'm not quite sure what happened or where he's gone. We travelled together, you see, but, well, just now, he vanished. Or maybe I vanished. It's hard to tell." "I see," said Father, but he clearly didn't. Mother returned with a cup for Mel, cocoa by the smell of it. "Here you go," she said. "My husband and I were about to have some anyway." Mel thanked her and took a sip. Something then caught her eye. The tree. "Oh, is it Christmas?" Just as Father was starting to reply, she carried on, talking to herself, though this time, "Of course it is. How silly of me. There's a tree. It's Christmas." She looked over at me. "Are you looking forward to the new year, Sarah? What do you think? 1936, I said. "Yes. What do you think 1936 will be like?" Professor Gregson liked the quiet. He liked the stillness, the lack of disturbances. That was why he'd taken up fishing, why he enjoyed hiking, why he went on holidays on his own, why he lived alone. Alone with his thoughts, he found he was more at peace than when he had to deal with other people. It was perhaps, he'd often thought, why he'd become an archaeologist. All those long, intensive hours of careful investigation, of methodical actions, had appealed to him. To be allowed to retreat into his own thoughts and block out the rest of the world, if only for a while, had its benefits. But, of course, archaeology wasn't exactly a loner's paradise. Gregson did enjoy the sense of teamwork and the friendships, both professionally and personally, he developed during his 40-year career. But he also took any opportunity he could to work alone. That was why he'd not thought twice about going to the site today, when only Matt, the security guard who looked after the dig's perimeter from his little porter cabin, would be around. Gregson had smiled hello to Matt as he'd driven in and seen that he'd had his little portable TV on. It was that show that was on every Christmas Day morning, Noel Edmonds visiting kids in hospital or something. Gregson took a step back from his work. His team had uncovered most of the relevant layer now, so for the first time on this dig they could see the whole context. It had been months of hard work, and Gregson had been waiting for this time, when the area becomes less like a building site and more understandable. His team had left on the 23rd and weren't due back until the new year, so Gregson knew he had a good few days with the dig to himself. Not that he'd do much digging. Now was the time for recording the evidence they'd found, for evaluating what they'd unearthed. With no one else around, he found he could think more clearly.
Oh, hello. How strange.
Gregson looked up and saw someone standing just outside the defined area. What was Matt playing at, letting some stranger just walk in?
Can I help you?
I hope so. I'm the doctor, and I'm looking for a young woman.
Aren't we all? But I'm not sure why you're looking here. This is private property.
Oh, is it? I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to trespass.
Well, you have. Please leave or I'll call for security. In fact, just how did you get in here?
Well, I'm not quite sure. But that's not important. First, I need to find my friend.
Well, I'm sorry about that, but there's nobody here except me and security.
We've been separated somehow. You see, it happened just as we left the TARDIS. By the way, have you seen my TARDIS?
Mother had finally managed to settle father down. She knew his moods better than anyone and had got him sitting in his chair. She sat next to him on the arm. "This is very kind of you," said Mel. "You said you were looking for your friend?" Mother asked. "Yes, we were together, but then I don't know what happened. I was outside your front door. I just assumed the doctor had come in here." "This doctor," said father. "He's your friend, is he? What are you, his patient?" "Ignore him, dear," said Mother. "He's still digesting his meal. I'm sorry, but you're the only visitor we've had tonight. You said you didn't know what had happened. Where were you and your friend going?" Mel looked as if she didn't know what to say, like when Michael gets caught being naughty. "Well, I'm not sure how to explain it," she said. "We travel around together." "Like gypsies?" said Michael, laughing. "Not quite, no." Mel smiled at him. "We explore. We just go wherever we want to and see what's there. The doctor's like that. He always wants to know what's over the next hill. Usually I haven't the faintest idea where we're going until we get there. But this time, the doctor said we had something to sort out. He said it was dangerous, that we had to be quick, but then..." "Yes?" I said. "Well, he disappeared and..." A shocked look crossed her face. "Oh my! The TARDIS! Where's the TARDIS?" Mel sprang out of her seat and ran to the curtains. She pulled them back, and I could see the street outside. Mel was frantically searching for something. "It's not there!" "What's not there, my dear?" Mother had moved across to Mel and was looking out too. The doctor's vehicle, I suppose. It should be there. I'd only just stepped out." Whatever it was that had happened, we could all see Mel was upset. Mother shepherded her back into the seat by the fire, and even father was starting to look concerned. "Look," he said softly, "I'm sure your friend is around somewhere. Perhaps you've got the wrong house, eh? I bet your friend is next door having a cup of tea with the Robinsons. Why don't I go and check?" Mel smiled at him. "Yes, thanks. You're probably right. That's very kind." While father got his coat from the hall, Mother went to get Mel some more cocoa. Michael passed one of his soldiers to Mel. "I got these last Christmas," he said. "Did you?" said Mel. "They're lovely, aren't they? Are you their general?" "Yes, and I haven't lost a battle yet." Mel was so good with Michael. She knew just how to talk to him, and I could see he was besotted with her. She was older than me, maybe about 20 or so. Perhaps she's used to dealing with children, I thought. But she was also good at talking to Mother and Father. Michael was telling Mel all about Christmas, as if she'd never had one before. I suppose when you're 5 years old, it's all new and fresh and exciting. Wait until he gets to 12. Mel then told us about her last Christmas. It was just me and the doctor, but it was lovely, she said. We had a nice meal and a lovely bottle of wine the doctor had got from the south of France. I'm not really sure how long ago it was. I know that sounds odd, but the doctor and I travel a lot, and we tend to lose track of time. Our last Christmas could have been 6 months ago for all I know. That's silly, said Michael. Christmas is on the same day every year. Well, said Mel, yes it is, but you know how different parts of the world have different times? How it might be the evening here, but it's already tomorrow morning in Australia. Michael turned to me, genuinely confused. Is it? Yes, I said. Well, continued Mel, when you travel as much as we do, you lose and gain days here and there. We go back and forth all the time, never in a straight line. I sometimes think the doctor would be unable to go from A to B by the quickest route. There's always some stone to look under and someone new to meet. Mother returned with a cocoa. This time there were mugs for all of us. Be careful, she said, as she always did. It's hot. We sipped at our drinks for a moment, and then, through the window, I saw Father returning. I'm sorry, Mel, he said as he took his coat off. There's no sign of your friend next door. I even went over to number 23 and checked at the Haywoods. They're away at his mother's until the second week of January, and the house looks locked up and untouched. Gregson had finally managed to get some sense out of the doctor. It appeared his pal, someone called Mel, had gone missing, and for some reason the doctor thought he or she had stumbled onto Gregson's site.
What is this, anyway? A dig of some kind?
What? I thought you were looking for your friend.
I am. But what you're doing here may have some significance. Mel went missing just as we arrived in this area. The TARDIS too. So perhaps it's all connected. You're an archaeologist, I take it?
Well, yes, of course. Professor Gregson, I'm the site coordinator here.
And what is your site? It looks like a house. Well, we are in the suburbs, that makes sense.
Yes, we're looking at the remains of a detached house, built early this century. Quite a desirable residence for the middle classes in its day.
And by this century, do you mean the 20th?
Of course I do. Anyway, since the house was razed, the site's been used as various things. A builder's yard until the 70s, for example. A car park since then. There's a supermarket just round the corner, you see. But despite its location and surroundings, no one's built on it since the rubble was cleared. There have been evaluations by developers, but every project's fallen through for some reason or other. What all that means is that we knew the archaeology had a great chance of having survived. There was no investigation done when the house was destroyed. The land was just levelled and sold.
I suppose the authorities had other things on their minds.
How do you mean?
I take it the house was hit by a German bomb.
No, this was already an empty lot by then. 24 Crawford Road was burnt down before the war. If you read the reports from the time, the house was completely gutted. In fact, it's those reports that first got me interested in the site. There's a mystery here, Doctor. The bodies of the family who lived here were never found, and they were never seen or heard from again. Perhaps the fire destroyed their remains. As I say, no official investigation was carried out at the time, but there are too many loose ends. We also don't even know how the fire started. Was it arson, an accident? The local tittle-tattle says the father of the house had a funny turn and set his own living room on fire. Though how anyone would know what really happened is beyond me.
And when was this fire?
60 years ago, almost to the day. Christmas Eve, 1935.
Can I do anything to help? Said Mel. You've been so kind. No, that's fine, said Mother. Look, it's getting late. You'd better stay with us for the night, and then we'll try to help you find your friend tomorrow. Mel looked frustrated, but said that perhaps Mother was right. She still wanted to help, though, and started to collect the empty cocoa mugs. At least let me wash these. It's the least I can do. Mother explained that Daisy would deal with the washing up before she prepared tomorrow's meal. Mel said she hadn't realised we had a maid. She comes in once a week to help my wife, said Father defensively, and she lives alone, so she's going to join us for our meal tomorrow. I'm sorry, said Mel. I didn't mean to. Knowing that Father needed to calm down, I jumped in. Mel, you can help me put Michael to bed if you like. Mother said, Yes, that would be good, wouldn't it, Michael? Thank you, Sarah. He didn't want to go to bed, of course, but I think the fact that Mel was helping me made the process a bit easier. She even carried him up the stairs, and he was almost asleep on her shoulder before we reached his room. Mel lowered him down into his bed as I drew the curtain shut. After Michael was tucked in, his eyes trying to stay open, Mel and I sat on his bed and we talked softly. I remember, said Mel, when I was about your age, Michael, one Christmas Eve, I tried so hard to stay awake because I wanted to see Father Christmas. I wanted to see what he looked like. But the trouble is, and I only found this out when I got older, that Father Christmas will only visit you if you're fast asleep. Michael's eyes were virtually closed now. So, sleep well, and then, tomorrow, when you wake up, he'll have been. We sat for a few minutes, just to make sure he dropped off. I whispered to Mel, I know the truth, about Father Christmas. What do you mean, Sarah? That he doesn't exist. She smiled sadly. He does if you want him to. The doctors show me that. We'll find your friend, Mel, I promise. He can't have got far on Christmas Eve. I hope you're right. The trouble is, for all I know, he could have left me here deliberately. He said he had something to sort out. She was talking to herself again, thinking out loud. Maybe he's left me here because he knew I'd be safe. But why not just tell me? Oh, he can be so... She stopped suddenly. Sarah, look! I turned. Underneath the door, smoke was creeping into the room.
You see here, Doctor? You can see where the burning is more prominent. The discoloration in the soil. Going by the plans of the house, the fire might have started when the hearth spilt its contents onto the rug.
Well, that would be consistent with what you have here. But aren't hearths designed to stop that from happening?
It's the best theory we have, Doctor. As you can see, the burning is quite severe. Look here at these walls. This side, the interior, is almost entirely blackened. The wallpaper must have burnt off completely, all around the ground floor. We can't find any of it that survived, on any of the brickwork. The damage is strongest nearer the hearth, but we'll need to investigate this site a lot more before we know whether that signifies the fire's origin, or simply that the family had a normal fire going which fueled the blaze.
The doctor was now walking around the shallow trench. Gregson noted that he knew what he was doing and was being careful not to disturb the archaeology or step on any uncovered areas.
Still, there's more to this, isn't there?
There's more, yes. My team identified many possible sites for us to look at. We had to submit proposals to the money men, you see. Well, this one was included in the list assembled by one of my assistants, even though it looked relatively unremarkable. But when I read the list, the address sparked something in my mind. I grew up not far from here and remembered that, even before the house fire, this patch of Crawford Road had a rather unusual history.
What do you mean, unusual?
When you look back over the history books, there's a series of fires. Probably been more than 3 dozen since the 14th century, always on this site, always on or around the 24th of December. There have also been numerous deaths, some murders, illnesses too. Plague wiped out 3 whole families who lived here in the 17th century. Disaster after disaster. No wonder no one's wanted to live here recently.
I had no idea it was having such an effect.
What do you mean? You had no idea what was having an effect?
I came here to this precise location because I detected something very dangerous. Something very dangerous indeed.
Mel opened the door. The landing was filling with smoke, and we could hear Father shouting up. Sarah! Michael! Get down here! Quickly, Mel gathered Michael up in one arm and grabbed my hand with another. We raced down the stairs, holding our breaths, and found Mother and Father in the hallway. Everywhere I looked, fire had taken hold. It was coming from under doors and slowly creeping up the walls. The heat was painful, the sound deafening. Mother took Michael from Mel, and Father hugged me so tightly. We're trapped, said Mother. I don't know how it spread so quickly. Other than going back upstairs, we couldn't see any way out of the house. Fire was creeping in from every side. With his free arm, Father opened the door leading to the back room. Here, he said. It's not so bad at the back of the house. Head for the window. He pushed Michael, Mother and Mel through the door, then me. It was still hot in the back room, and the smoke was getting everywhere. Father ran to the window and struggled with the catch. Mother screamed, "Look out, James!" Father had just enough time to leap out of the way before part of the back room ceiling fell, fire raging through the hole from upstairs. "How did it spread up there so quickly?" said Mel. "What's going on?" The collapsed ceiling, all the floorboards and wreckage, was blocking off the window. We were trapped with no way of escape. I started to cry. "Where's Michael?" shouted Father. "Good God, Julia, where's Michael gone?" "He ran upstairs." Mel was at the door in a flash. "Michael! Michael!" Father shoved her out of the way, but she fought back, holding him in the room. "You won't make it," she shouted. "The flames are growing all the time. Hopefully he can climb out of his bedroom window and get out." "Let go of me, girl. I must try." But the fire continued to roar, and as we watched, it took hold on the stairs and the banister and the wall. Crying, Father shouted as loud as he could, "Michael! Get to a window and climb down!"
What do you mean, dangerous?
Something that shouldn't be here. Something that shouldn't be interfered with.
Look, Doctor, I'm sorry I can't be more help, and I hope you find your friend. But it's time.
Time for what? What do you have to run back to?
I don't understand.
Professor Gregson, you're here, working on Christmas Day.
I can see you're very observant. What's your point?
Your dig will still be here tomorrow. The day after that. Next week, next year if need be. There's nothing so imperative that it would need you to be here today. So that leads me to believe that you have no family waiting at home, ready to tuck into Christmas dinner.
That's a very sweeping assumption about...
I didn't mean to offend you.
It's okay. You're right. I have nobody to go home to. It's the way I've always lived, and before you say anything, that's how I like it. But at Christmas, it always feels different. Like I'm missing something, a lost connection. Never been able to put my finger on it.
Until now.
Oh, I don't know. There's something about this site that I find very calming. I've been on countless digs all over the world, and never in my career have I felt this strongly about somewhere.
Like a lost connection that's suddenly made again, perhaps.
The two men locked eyes, and Gregson felt a sudden, overwhelming need to burst into tears. But a second later, and the moment was gone as the doctor moved quickly away. Something had caught his eye, and Gregson watched him walk quickly over to a patch of the dusty ground. His face was a mixture of expressions, confusion, shock, sadness, joy, all battling for supremacy. Gregson followed him.
Yeah, I wondered if you'd spot that. We discovered it a few days ago. Odd, isn't it? It's baffled all of us, to be honest. Going by the floor plans, that was the back room of the house, overlooking the garden. And there, right in the middle of the room, is this. We reckoned it must have been made during the fire. The ground beneath it isn't as badly burnt as that around it. For a few moments, at least, as the fire raged, something protected the ground just here.
With the tip of his umbrella, the doctor traced a perfect square, clearly marked out in the burnt ground. I held onto Father's hand for dear life, squeezing it so hard I could hear Michael sobbing, Mother too. Mel was trying to be brave, but I could see how scared she was. She'd lost her friend tonight and was now going to die. She looked down at me with such sadness in her face. "Perhaps Father Christmas will save us," I said. "I hope so, Sarah." She then looked up, and we could all hear a noise above the sound of the flames, a roar of a different kind. I couldn't believe my eyes as a large blue box started to appear in the middle of the room. The fire and the smoke seemed to move aside to make way for it. A light flashed brightly on and off on top of it. "What is it?" asked Mother. "It's Father Christmas," said Mel, laughing. After a moment, the noise died down and a door opened on the box. A man appeared and quickly looked around. He saw us and told us to get inside. We didn't need asking again, and, with a fire blazing around us, we stepped inside the box. I can't explain it, but the inside was a whole room, even bigger than our back room. It was white and cool and safe. Once we were inside, the man closed the door. "Doctor," said Mel, "there's somebody out there, a little boy, Michael."
There's nothing I can do, Mel. It's beyond my control.
He talked frantically as he fiddled with dials and levers and buttons on the odd-looking structure in the middle of the room.
This house was built on very shaky ground. It's sitting on top of a temporal volcano.
A what? Mel shouted as the entire room lurched. Father caught me in his arms as I stumbled, but Mel and her friend had easily kept their footing.
The earth below is literally bulging with temporal energy, anchored to this particular day across many centuries, which is a very dangerous thing to have in this dimension.
What are you saying? Said Father, still confused by what was going on. A volcano?
Of sorts. That's what caused the fire, no doubt. It's also what sucked Mel into the past, where we landed in Croydon in 1995. The TARDIS went walkabouts too, or so I thought. It was actually in both years at the same time, seesawing between the two time zones. It just took me a while to see it.
Stop, Doctor! Shouted Mel. Look at me and listen. There's a little boy maybe trapped in that house.
I know, Mel, but we're trapped ourselves whilst the TARDIS is stuck. Think of it like being trapped on a lava flow, which is dictating our path. I could come back to 1935, but only once, and only for a moment. We can't go back. It's taking all the TARDIS's energy to get us anywhere safely.
He turned to Mother and Father.
Mr. and Mrs. Gregson, I'm so sorry, but to save your lives and your daughters, I'm afraid I've had to take you along the temporal lava flow too. I don't know where, or rather when, it'll take us. But I'm afraid, having lived in that house, on top of the temporal energy, you can never go back. It would kill you. I'm sorry.
But what about our son? Asked Father.
He survived the fire, and he lived a long, healthy life.
How do you know that? I asked.
I've met him. One day he will become an archaeologist, and he'll come home for Christmas.